Welcome to calm, dreamy sleep, a peaceful place where stories become dreams. Just relax and slowly close your eyes. Take a gentle breath in and let the day quietly drift away. If this story brings you peace, if you feel calmer, lighter, please subscribe and like. So let's start. Tonight, I will tell you how a girl from a humble cottage found her way through that door. A soft, luminous, like moonlight on snow. Hold for 10 seconds as it slowly fades. Her name was Alara, and she lived deep in the forests of the North Country, where winter lasts longer than anywhere else, and the people learn to find warmth in small things. Her father was a woodcutter, a kind man with calloused hands and a gentle heart. He had raised Alara alone since she was small, after her mother passed away when the girl was too young to remember. But Alara did not feel alone, not truly, for she had the forest. She had the songs of the birds in spring, the rustle of leaves in autumn, the hush of snowfall in winter. And she had Bjorn. Let the name settle like a warm presence. Warm and tender. Bjorn was her companion, her protector, her dearest friend. He was a dog of enormous size, with fur the color of charcoal and silver, and eyes the pale blue of a winter sky. People sometimes joked that he was part wolf, for he had the strength and the quiet dignity of the wild. But Alara knew the truth. Beneath that fierce exterior beat the gentlest heart she had ever known. When she was sad, he would rest his heavy head on her knee. When she was cold, he would curl around her like a living blanket. When she laughed, his tail would wag so hard, his whole body seemed to shake with joy. They were never apart, not truly. Wherever Alara went, Bjorn was never far behind. Warm, hopeful, like a father's love. Slow and gentle. Years passed. Alara grew from a child into a young woman. Her father watched her bloom like a flower in the brief northern summer, and his heart swelled with pride. But he also felt loneliness. The cottage was quiet in the evenings. The fire crackled, the wind howled outside, and the woodcutter found himself wishing for companionship. When he told Alara he wished to marry again, she understood. She had only the faintest memories of her mother, like echoes of a song almost forgotten. If her father could find love again, she would welcome it. And when he returned from a journey to the village with a new wife and her daughter, Alara opened her heart to them both. Her stepmother's name was Ingrid. Her stepsister, Signa. For the first few weeks, the cottage was filled with the awkwardness of strangers learning to live together. But Alara did not mind. She had never had a sister. She hoped that Sina might become one. But hope does not always bloom into reality. The stepmother soon revealed her true nature. She was a woman who measured worth in appearances, who compared and contrasted, who could not bear to see another shine more brightly than her own daughter. And Alara, with her gentle grace, her quiet beauty, her natural goodness, shone like the morning star. Slow and compassionate, the harder Alara tried to please her stepmother, the more the woman found fault. If Alara was kind, she was called simple. If she was quiet, she was called sullen. If she worked hard, she was trying to show off. If she rested, she was lazy. Singna watched all of this from the shadows. She was not cruel by nature, but she was weak. And weakness, when guided by a strong will, becomes complicity. Alara bore it all with patience. She had learned from the northern winters that storms eventually pass, that the sun always returns, that endurance is its own kind of strength. And she had Bjorn. When the words cut too deep, when the unfairness stung like ice on bare skin, she would bury her face in his thick fur, and he would lean against her, solid and warm and true. Let the warmth of that image linger. Then came the day when Alara's father had to journey south. Winter was approaching. The demand for firewood was great. He would be gone for 2 days, trading his wood for supplies they would need in the cold months ahead. The morning of his departure was crisp and clear. Frost sparkled on every surface. The breath of the horses rose in white clouds as they were hitched to the wagon. Alara hugged her father tightly, longer than usual, as if some part of her sensed that everything was about to change. Bjorn sat at her heels, his pale blue eyes following the wagon until it disappeared into the trees. Then Alara turned and walked back into the cottage. Barely there, like a shadow passing. The day passed quietly. Each of them attended to their chores. They spoke little, but in the mind of the stepmother, a plan was forming. A plan to take advantage of her husband's absence. A plan to rid herself of Alara, once and for all. Late in the afternoon, with the winter sunset only an hour away, Alara was curled in her sleeping loft with a book. The light through the small window was growing dim, but she was lost in her story. Then she heard it. Commotion from downstairs. Her stepmother's voice, raised in distress. Alara descended quickly. Her heart beat faster. What could be wrong? The front door stood wide open. Cold air poured into the kitchen. Her stepmother wrung her hands. "Alara," she cried. "The wind blew the door open, and your dog, Bjorn, he ran off." Alara's eyes darted around the room. She checked by the stove where Bjorn loved to lie. She checked the corners. She called his name. Nothing. Without a word, she grabbed her woolen wrap and ran outside. Urgent, worried, like footsteps in snow. She searched the yard. She searched the sheds. She searched every corner of their little homestead. "Bjorn!" she called. "Bjorn!" But only the wind answered. She returned to the front door, breathless and frightened. "Which way did he go?" she asked. The stepmother pointed toward the trail that led deep into the forest. "If you are quick," she said, "you may catch him." Alara did not think. She did not consider that she wore only a light wrap. She did not consider that night was falling. She did not consider that the forest was vast and wild. She ran. Let the urgency fade into something quieter. As the girl disappeared into the gloom, the stepmother closed the door. She crossed to the pantry. She opened it. There, curled contentedly on a pile of sacks, finishing the last of a pile of pancakes, sat Bjorn. He looked up at her, his pale blue eyes innocent and trusting. He had been there all along. The stepmother and Sina snickered together. Their deception had worked perfectly. And in the forest, Alara walked deeper and deeper, calling a name that could not answer. Like a single star in a dark sky, she walked for what felt like hours. Around every bend, she thought she might see him. Behind every tree, she hoped to find him waiting. The light faded. The shadows lengthened. The cold crept through her thin wrap and settled into her bones. And still she walked. It was only when she could no longer see the path, when the trees all looked the same, when the last light of day bled from the sky, that she realized the truth. She was lost. Let the silence hold her solitude, warm with gentle concern. Alara stumbled through the darkness, over tree roots, around boulders, under low-hanging branches heavy with the coming snow. She called for Bjorn still, but her voice grew hoarse, and in her heart, she knew he was not here. The cold grew deeper. Her teeth began to chatter. Her fingers grew numb. She needed shelter. She needed to survive until morning. And then she saw it. A small clearing fringed by thickly clustered evergreen trees. Their low-hanging branches formed a kind of natural tent. She crawled underneath. She pulled her wrap tighter around herself. She leaned back against a tree trunk and tried to rest. Like magic approaching, she was just beginning to drift into an uneasy sleep when something changed. The air around her seemed to drop in temperature, sharply, so sharply that it pulled her from her chilled stupor. Her nose tingled. The forest seemed to whisper in a language she could not understand. She turned to look behind her, sensing a presence, or perhaps just a change in the atmosphere. When she turned back to face the clearing, she could hardly believe her eyes. Standing in the center of the clearing was a figure. Tall, regal, cloaked in what appeared to be moonlight and frost. At first, she could not make out his features, but she could see his arms, moving slowly, gracefully, as if conducting an invisible orchestra. And as he moved, the air around him sparkled. Tiny fragments of light, like crushed diamonds, like frozen starlight, traveled from his fingers on the wind. Wherever they landed, the world transformed, like frost forming, like magic spreading. Green boughs turned white. Grass became crystalline. The forest floor glittered as if coated in sugar. He was painting the world with winter, making it new, making it beautiful. Alara watched, frozen herself, but not from cold, from awe. Then he stopped. He turned, he looked directly at her, and in his eyes, she saw surprise. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The forest held its breath. The snow sparkled in the moonlight. Then he spoke. A single piano note, warm, curious, like a question. "My goodness," he said. His voice was like the first snowfall of the year, soft and magical. "Where did you come from?" Elara tried to speak, but her voice would not come. He was handsome, more handsome than anyone she had ever seen. His hair was the color of winter moonlight. His eyes were the deep blue of a frozen lake. And his presence radiated something she could not name. Seeing that she could not answer, he folded his arms and considered her. Then he shook his head. "Well, miss," he said, "you cannot stay here. I am about to layer this entire forest in a deep winter freeze. And you will not find it comfortable for sleeping." Elara finally found her voice. I do not mean to interrupt," she said. "Please, continue your work." He raised an eyebrow. "You would rather stay here, in the cold? Then let me take you somewhere warm." Elara shook her head. "I have nowhere to go," she admitted. "I am lost, and wandering in the dark seems worse than being cold." The man regarded her for a long moment. Then he shrugged. "Very well," he said. "I will continue, but I warn you, it will grow very cold indeed." Slow and descriptive. He retreated to the center of the clearing. He spread his arms wide. Pause. Breathe. And the magic began again. Pause. 5 seconds. But this time, it was stronger, more intense. The temperature dropped so quickly that Alara's breath froze in the air before her face. Pause. Breathe. Icicles formed on the branches. Swirling cyclones of snow danced across the clearing. The world became a frozen wonderland, beautiful and terrible. Alara's chin began to wobble. Her teeth chattered. She hugged herself tightly, but it was not enough. She tried to be brave. She tried to be still, but the cold was beyond anything she had ever known. The man turned. He saw her, and he stopped. He strode back across the clearing, his feet leaving no prints in the snow. "Miss," he said, "you are clearly not dressed for winter, and this is not even the coldest it will become." Elara tried to smile. Her teeth chattered so hard she could barely speak. "I am not cold," she lied. "I like winter. It is my favorite season. And you make it so very pretty." He looked at her, flattered, but also exasperated. Warm piano note, like a decision made. He studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke again. "You are lost, are you not? You have nowhere to go. even though you are freezing here. Elara's brave face crumbled. She nodded. She told him then about Bjorn, about searching, about getting lost, about having no idea how to find her way home. When she finished,
His expression softened.
he bowed, low and graceful. "I am Kale," he said, "keeper of winter, guardian of the frost. I have dominion over the north, and I bring winter to those who need it." Then he smiled, a mischievous smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "People here take me for granted," he added, "but those in warmer climates find me awfully impressive." Let the smile linger. Elara managed a smile in return. She introduced herself, curtsying as best she could with her numb limbs. Kale looked at her, saw how she shivered, saw how her lips had turned pale. "Come," he said. "My sleigh is nearby. There are warm blankets, hot drinks. You cannot stay here." He motioned for her to follow. Grateful beyond words, Elara trailed behind him. Her feet sank into the fresh snow. She marveled at how the entire clearing, which had been green and grassy just a short time ago, was now transformed. A soft, magical piano melody, like a sleigh ride through stars. And then she saw it. Tucked beneath the tall trees was a sleigh. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Pure white, shining. Its runners were silver, and they sparkled in the moonlight. Hitched to it stood a horse, also white, with a mane that seemed to glow. Kale opened the door. He bowed gallantly. Elara stepped inside. The interior was lined with red velvet. Soft woolen blankets were piled on the seats. She wrapped herself in them immediately, pulling them up to her chin. Kale snapped his fingers, and from nowhere, a silver tray appeared. On it, a steaming mug of spiced cider. Let the warmth spread. Elara took the mug with trembling hands. She sipped. It was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. Warm, sweet, filled with spices that seemed to reach into her very bones and chase the cold away. Kyle closed the door. He leaned against it, ready to talk. "Now," he said, "tell me everything. How did you come to be lost in my forest?" And so Elara told him about her home, about her father, about her stepmother and stepsister, about Bjorn. Kale listened. His eyes never left her face. When she finished, he asked her to describe her house. Was it large or small? He asked. Built of stone or wood? Did it have a garden? A fence? Elara told him about their cozy wooden cottage, about the steeply pitched roof, about the carvings around the windows, all made by her father's loving hands. She told him about the yard, the kitchen garden, the hay shed, the small barn, the rustic fence woven from branches. As she spoke, Kale smiled. Not only was her love for her home evident, but he knew exactly where it was. After all, he was familiar with every inch of his lands, and there were not many houses to be found. Warm and playful. From behind his back, Kale produced a wrapped box. "I have 2 pieces of good news," he said. "The first is that these are the most delicious chocolates you will ever taste." Alara blushed. She accepted the box. She pulled off the lid. Inside were delicate treats, shaped like snowflakes and stars. "The second piece of good news," Kale continued, "is that I know where your house is, and I will take you home." Like a heart leaping, Alara clapped her hands. The box tumbled into her lap. She thanked him. She thanked him again. She offered him a chocolate. He accepted. He savored it briefly. Then he seated himself beside her. Alara had expected him to be cold to the touch, but he radiated something. Not exactly warmth, but something else. Something that made her feel safe. He urged the horse forward. The sleigh lurched gently into motion. And they were off. Narrator, slow and dreamlike. The ride was like nothing Alara had ever experienced. The trees seemed to bow as they passed. The forest sang with the sound of 1,000 tiny bells. The snow sparkled like diamonds under the moonlight. Kyle sang songs of winter. He told her stories of his adventures. He asked about her life and listened to her answers as if they were the most fascinating tales in the world. Alara found herself relaxing into the velvet seat. The blankets were soft. The cider had warmed her through. And the presence of this strange, wonderful being beside her made her feel something she had never felt before. She did not know how much time passed. The journey felt like a dream, a beautiful, magical dream. All too soon, the sleigh pulled into her yard. Kale helped her down. He cautioned her to be careful on the ice. Alara tried to return the blanket, but he shook his head. "Keep it," he said. "Consider it a gift. It may be useful the next time you wander into the woods at night." She blushed. She thanked him. Then she turned and walked to her door. Soft and tender. When she opened the door, there was Bjorn, sitting on the threshold, tail wagging madly. Alara dropped to her knees. She threw her arms around him. She buried her face in his fur. "He must have come home while I was gone," she whispered, puzzled, but too relieved to question. As she stood, as she began to close the door, she looked back. Kale was still there, his sleigh waiting under the trees. And as he pulled away, she could have sworn that he winked at her. Soft, mysterious, like a secret. Her stepmother and stepsister made a great show of welcoming her home. But Alara saw the look in their eyes, the disappointment that she had returned. She did not understand it then, not fully, but she held the warm blanket close, and she kept the memory of the sleigh ride and the kind stranger with the frost-touched eyes in the safest place in her heart. Warm and reflective. The weeks passed. Winter settled over the North Country in earnest. Snow piled high against the cottage walls. The days grew short and the nights long. But Alara did not mind the darkness. Not anymore. She found herself daydreaming, wondering where Kale was. What wonders he was creating with his magical hands. Whether he ever thought of her. She had never imagined anything beyond the simple life of the cottage. But now, her dreams had grown wings, like a gift arriving. One morning, after a particularly heavy snowfall, Elara opened the front door. And there, on the doorstep, was a box. It was wrapped in silver paper, tied with a soft green velvet bow. She brought it inside. She unwrapped it carefully, not wanting to tear the beautiful paper. Inside was a cloak, royal blue, embroidered all over with tiny silver snowflakes, so soft she could hardly believe it was real. Warm and tender. Her stepmother and stepsister crowded around. They could not resist touching the beautiful fabric. Elara draped the cloak around her shoulders. It was perfect. It was as if it had been made for her. She knew, without being told, who had sent it. Her heart swelled with joy. Her stepmother's face tightened with envy, slow and gentle. The arrival of the cloak put the stepmother in a sour mood. She ordered Elara to put it away, to focus on her chores, to clear the entire front walkway of snow. It was a spiteful instruction. The cold was bitter. There was no urgent need. But Alara's good spirits could not be dimmed. She put on her old coat and completed her chores as if in a dream. The Frost King had remembered her. Weeks passed. Winter deepened. And then another storm came. Another morning. Another gift on the doorstep. This one was wrapped in gold paper, tied with a white ribbon. Inside were boots. The softest boots any of them had ever seen, embroidered in colorful patterns, lined with warm wool. Elara slipped them on. They fit perfectly, like they had been made just for her. Her stepmother could contain herself no longer. "Well," she said to her daughter, "Signa, you will go into the forest. You will find this Frost King, and you will return with gifts even more splendid than these." Signa gaped at her mother. Surely she did not mean to send her out into the cold on such a foolish errand, but her mother was quite serious. She commanded the woodcutter to drive Signa into the woods and leave her there, without a coat. Elara and her father tried to object, but the stepmother would not be moved. Narrator, so it was that Signa found herself standing in a forest clearing as the sun set and the temperature dropped. She stamped her feet. She clapped her hands. She called out in her most helpless voice. But no majestic figure appeared. She waited and waited and grew colder and more ill-tempered. Where was this Frost King? Why did he not come for her as he had for her stepsister? Just as she was about to give up, she heard bells. A white sleigh appeared, pulled by a white horse, driven by a figure so handsome it took her breath away. She ran into his path. She played the damsel in distress. Kale looked at her. His expression was curious. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, a soft, knowing piano note, like recognition of truth. Sini explained. She was lost. She was cold.
Could he not help her?
Kale considered her for a moment. Then he nodded. "You may ride with me for a while," he said. "When my work is finished, I will take you home." Sina climbed into the sleigh. She wrapped herself in the fine blanket, already planning to keep it. Then she cleared her throat. "Will you not offer me refreshment?" she asked. A look of understanding crossed Kale's face. He snapped his fingers. A cup appeared. It was rustic, plain, filled with hot water. With it came a slice of plain bread on a simple plate. "Enjoy," he said. Sina was outraged. This was not at all what she had expected. "How long must your work go on?" she demanded. "I am cold."
I wish to go home.
Kale did not turn around. "You are right," he said. "Returning you home is my greatest priority. I do not think we would enjoy the rest of the evening in each other's company." He turned the sleigh sharply. He drove her directly to her cottage. He did not help her down. He did not offer her any gifts. And when she opened the door, the blanket she had been using vanished from her shoulders. Sina returned empty-handed. Her mother was furious. Her stepfather and stepsister were simply relieved she was safe. Alara said nothing, but in her heart, she felt a quiet joy. The Frost King had not favored her sister. The gifts, the warmth, the kindness, they had been for her alone. Winter continued. Then it began to wane. The days grew longer. The snow began to melt. The air held the faintest hint of coming spring. Alara felt a sadness she could not name. With the departure of winter would come the departure of the Frost King. She might never see him again. But then, something unexpected happened. In April, when spring should have been fully arrived, a late snowstorm blanketed the land. Alara woke to a world transformed once more. Everything was white. Frost coated the windows. The sun sparkled on the fresh snow. Her heart leaped. She ran to the door. And there, on the doorstep, was a box wrapped in soft purple cloth, tied with a silver ribbon. Like the moment before forever. She looked up, and there, standing some distance away, was Kale. His sleigh waited under the trees. He was grinning. He was even more handsome than she remembered. His entire being seemed to shimmer in the late winter sun. He nodded at the box. "Open it," he called. Alara tugged at the ribbon. She lifted the lid. Inside was a tiara made of diamonds, catching the light, throwing rainbows in every direction. She had never seen a diamond before, let alone a crown such as this. She clapped her hand over her mouth. "I cannot accept this," she whispered. What would a woodcutter's daughter do with a diamond crown? Warm and tender, Kael approached. He walked through the snow until he stood before her. His eyes, those deep blue eyes like frozen lakes, looked into hers. "My heart," he said, "was captured by a girl I found in the forest. A girl who was brave enough to face the cold, kind enough to thank me for my work, beautiful enough to make me wish I was not alone." He bowed, slightly, his hand over his heart. "Elara," he said, "will you be my wife? Will you be the queen of snow and ice and rule the winter by my side?" Let the question hang in the air like frost. For a moment, Elara could only gaze at the tiara, winking, glittering. Then she looked up at him, and she smiled. "Yes," she said. "Yes." A cascade of soft, joyful piano notes, like a winter wedding. They were married in his ice palace, in that part of the world where the snow never melts and the stars shine brighter than anywhere else. Bjorn came too, of course. He was the happiest dog imaginable. Not only did he get pancakes at every meal, but the icy palace suited his thick fur perfectly. Elara became a queen. But she never forgot her humble beginnings. And sometimes, when the seasons shifted, she would journey to the warmer lands. She would bring with her a gust of cool air, a refreshing breeze, a reminder that winter would always return. Tonight's story is now gently coming to an end. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for listening. You don't need to do anything now. Just rest. Let your thoughts grow quiet, one by one, like candles being softly blown out. The soft sounds you hear, the gentle rain, the quiet hush of the world outside. They will continue to play, slowly, softly, steadily, guiding you deeper and deeper into comfortable, natural sleep. Close your eyes now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands rest open. Let your breath grow slow and easy. There is nothing to carry with you tonight. No thoughts to hold, no worries to keep. Only this quiet moment, only this gentle stillness. Allow yourself to drift away now, like a leaf on still water, like a cloud across a silent moon. Deeper and deeper and deeper still. Good night and sweet dreams.